So when they get home, the wife says, "Dear, will you please go to the kitchen and get me a dish of ice cream? Maybe write it down so you don't forget." "Come on," he says, "I can remember a dish of ice cream." "Well, I'd also like some strawberries and whipped cream on it," she says. "My memory's not that bad," says the husband. "No problem. Dish of ice cream, strawberries, and whipped cream." Goes into the kitchen. His wife hears some pots and pans and things going on. And finally he comes back from the kitchen and he presents his wife with a plate of bacon and eggs. She says, "Hey, what about the toast I asked for?" Okay, I'll stop there. Thank you. George, are you going to do the mic? We have a question for today. If you are new to Lighthouse, we start our message time most Sundays with a question. If you'd like to answer it, George is going to bring the microphone. You need to stand and answer succinctly and clearly and speak into the mic. And we've kind of asked a broad question today. Remember a time that you forgot something, or when you were forgotten, or that you felt forgotten.
I'll never forget the time that I was a new mom. Jason had been born in March, and that very first summer I had joined some friends out at the lake, and we had a wonderful weekend out there with the new baby, and we were getting ready to go, and I had laid him on the floor in the cabin while we were packing the car, and we got in the car and drove off, left him there. We didn't get very far. We went back and got him, but...
There was a year that I was home for Thanksgiving, and I had gone down in our family room down in the basement to rest before Thanksgiving dinner was served. And I had fallen asleep, and I came up, and all my family had eaten, and there was not much left, and I was like, I'm glad I'm a member of this family.
Come on, we'll give a minute here. People need a chance to think about it.
I met my wife. I married her in the Catholic Church in Callaway, Minnesota, so she was Polish. And when we met, we fell in love, and she said, "Well, you got to come to Poland to meet my family." So I flew into Warsaw. We had to take a train to Poznan on the whole other side of Poland. Well, right when I got there, I set down my little folder deal with Velcro, and it had some different things. Well, guess what was in it? My return ticket.
Oh.
And they didn't have it. Was on KLM, Royal Dutch Airlines, and it was a paper ticket. So that created quite a stir.
Obviously, you made it back.
I made it back.
Terrible feeling. Anybody else? Blake and Troy over here.
I forgot it was my daughter's birthday today.
Today? You know what? It's my daughter's birthday today, too. And it's the birthday of the woman right behind you. Holy cow. Happy birthday. Blake had one, too. George, right here. Do you still have one?
Yeah.
Or did you forget? Yeah. You have to stand up.
I did this, so. I did the same thing last time. This is like my third, fourth time. This ain't
Are you going to share something or not? Okay. Anybody else? That's all right, Blake. Anybody else? My wife has one. Sure.
He thinks this is hilarious, but so I had my 3-year-old son and my infant daughter and a husband who left early Sunday mornings to go to church to get ready, leaving me then to get the 3 of us ready to come to church. And I was on time, I was doing really well. I had gotten Andrew buckled in, and I'd gotten baby Sarah buckled in, and I went and closed the door and, locked it, and I got out and I slipped right into my seat, and I thought, that slid really well. And I looked down and I still had just my slip on, and I had forgotten to put my skirt on.
They'd still be talking about that in Botno if you'd have made it all the way to church. Anybody else? Okay, what are you gonna do? Oh, okay. Just chill. I think four. Okay, I'm gonna hold on to this a second because we had all pretty light things shared today. But I want, and I don't know if anybody is going to want to share or not, but I'm going to hold on to the mic in case somebody does. Because sometimes the feeling of forgottenness is much more difficult and much darker. Pretty much everybody here knows that I've gone through a difficult journey over the last few years of my life. I went through a period of severe burnout and depression. I started to self-medicate with alcohol during that time. And during that time of burnout, one could say that I certainly felt alone. Then there was a period where I left my past employment and I was kind of off on my own. And I had people around me. I had a wife who loved me. I had family who cared about me. And I had a few others who were trying to reach out to me. But I remember this enormous sense of feeling like I had just been forgotten and just left by the roadside. Is there anybody else who'd like to share a time when they felt forgotten? Okay.
I could say probably right now. We have a son who left home, and I'm feeling a little bit forgotten as a mother.
You are not, but thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else want to share? Okay.
Well, me and my husband got married on Christmas Day, so every Christmas my anniversary is forgotten. So it just makes me sad.
Makes you sad? I understand. I've heard those kind of things. Anybody else? Okay. Okay.
I'm going to share about when I was in high school and I graduated from high school. My father was having problems at that time with his drinking, and there were times that he would show up and times he wouldn't show up. So on my graduation, I felt very forgotten because he wasn't there. My mom and my sister and my grandmother made it so that it was not to be forgotten, but it's always there. You always remember that your dad couldn't make it to your graduation.
Yeah. Anybody else? George, I should have saved the mic for you. Terry? It's okay.
About 3 years ago, I went through a divorce, or was in the process of going through a divorce, and I had 3 sons. And I think one of the most traumatic things was the loss of my family. Even though the relationship obviously wasn't working out, I left my home, and eventually another man came into their life, and that was a difficult thing for me. And I'm now in the process of reestablishing a relationship with my 3 sons, who are young men now. But I think just the loss I felt of going out alone and feeling like I lost my family.
Thank you for sharing that, Terry. We can do one more if there is any more.
See you now. This is so. How do I fall for this every time?
Here. This is Blake, who's a friend of mine. He's had a couple weeks.
I get the total go faster there. So I haven't seen that yet. Over 2006.
Sometimes in our journeys, Blake has experienced some injuries and recovery and feeling a little bit.
I was quicker though this time. I was nine. I lost 3, 4 times. I don't know. This is my 4th time around.
We are just glad you're here, okay? Hang in there.
Yeah, it feels good. I was having a real
Hang in.
rough day.
I know.
Talked to my buddy and Jason.
Little private time here, so just bear with us. Grab a Bible if you could and turn to Genesis chapter 40. And Genesis, if you don't remember, is the first book of the Bible. And chapter 40, near the end of the book of Genesis. And if you haven't been with us over the last weeks, we are in a journey through the story of Joseph. And we've had lots of interesting encounters with Joseph so far. Joseph, if you remember, was the favorite of his father. And his father gave them this cool coat that he got to wear. His brothers were a little bit resentful of their dad and his favoritism for Joseph. So they beat up Joseph and they threw him into a cistern. They sold him into slavery, not quite according to plan, as Joseph had thought. Joseph ends up in Egypt, and last week we encountered him when he was trying to do the right thing, and still things didn't go very well for him. And today we're going to encounter Joseph now in prison, and how Joseph too teaches us something about the feeling of forgottenness. Sometime later, Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and chief baker offended their royal master. Pharaoh became angry with these 2 officials, and he put them in the prison where Joseph was, in the palace of the captain of the guard. They remained in prison for quite some time, and the captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, who looked after them. While they were in prison, Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker each had a dream one night, and each dream had its own meaning. When Joseph saw them the next morning, he noticed that they both looked upset. "Why do you look so worried today?" he asked them. And they replied, "We both had dreams last night, but no one could tell us what they mean." "Interpreting dreams is God's business," Joseph replied. "Go ahead and tell me your dreams." So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream first. "In my dream," he said, "I saw a grapevine in front of me. The vine had 3 branches that began to bud and blossom, and soon it produced clusters of ripe grapes. I was holding Pharaoh's wine cup in my hand, so I took a cluster of grapes and squeezed the juice into the cup. Then I placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. This is what the dream means," Joseph said. The 3 branches represent 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift you up and restore you to your position as his chief cupbearer. And please remember me and do me a favor when things go well for you. Mention me to Pharaoh so he might let me out of this place. For I was kidnapped from my homeland in the land of the Hebrews, and now I'm here in prison, but I did nothing to deserve it. When the chief baker saw that Joseph had given the first dream such a positive interpretation, he said to Joseph, I had a dream too. In my dream there were 3 baskets of white pastries stacked on my head. The top basket contained all kinds of pastries for Pharaoh, but the birds came and ate them from the basket on my head. This is what the dream means, Joseph told him. The 3 baskets also represent 3 days. 3 days from now, Pharaoh will lift you up and impale your body on a pole. Then birds will come and peck away at your flesh. Pharaoh's birthday came 3 days later. He prepared a banquet for all his officials and staff. He summoned his chief cupbearer and the chief baker to join the other officials. He then restored the chief cupbearer to his former position so he could again hand Pharaoh his cup. But Pharaoh impaled the chief baker, just as Joseph had predicted when he interpreted his dream. And here's the key verse. Pharaoh's chief cupbearer, however, forgot all about Joseph, never giving him another thought. Now, the reality in our life is that we are going to go through times when we feel forgotten. We are going to go through times when we feel that we are alone. Oftentimes we will go through periods of our life when we think that other people should be doing something to help us, encourage us, or even just say something to us, and yet they don't even always know what we're going through. And it can lead to a period of feeling very, very alone. My guess is that you have had times in your life when you have felt forgotten. If you haven't, you probably will. And one of the things that we read in scriptures is that these times are going to come in our life. In fact, in the Psalms, you'll often read David write these words, Lord, please do not turn your face away from me. And what David is saying is, Lord, please don't forget me. Because once we turn our face sometimes, it's easy to forget. In fact, even Jesus, if you remember, had a feeling of being alone. Jesus had a time when he felt forgotten. When was it? It was on the cross. One could probably argue that it was even the last day before the cross. But on the cross, some of his words are words of abandonment and feeling forgotten. Look, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why have you forgotten me? Now, one of the things that I wanted to share today that I think is really important is that we're going to spend a fair amount of our time today not talking specifically to those of you who feel forgotten right now. I'm going to say something to you at the end. But what I want to really spend our time today, and I think that Joseph is such a key here. We don't learn a lot about Joseph's faith, but it becomes so clear as we go through the story of Joseph that obviously Joseph had something inside that even the worst circumstances couldn't yank away from him. And one of the things that I want to share with you is that we don't wait to feel forgotten or abandoned in order to prepare for those times. Last week I had mentioned that one of the funny things about my kids who were swimmers is they would have these swimming injuries, and so we'd go to a physical therapist, and the physical therapist would give them these exercises to do, and they would exercise those muscles until they started to feel better, and then what did they do? They quit the exercises. And then they get injured again. The reality is that if you want to run a marathon, you don't start training a couple of weeks in advance. If you want to be prepared for something, you have to start the exercises and the preparation before it gets there. If you want a feeling of firmness on the foundation on what you are building your faith life for times when you feel forgotten, it's when you don't feel forgotten that you need to begin to build that. In fact, you may even find that those dark times don't come around quite as often when you're working to prepare for them. Turn with me to Romans chapter 12, if you've got a Bible handy. I didn't look up a page number because we have various page numbers here. Romans is in the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans. In the Recovery Bible, which I know some of you are using, it's page 1447. And if you don't have it looked up, you can follow along. But Romans chapter 12. And follow along as we go here. So, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all He has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind He will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship Him. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person. How? By changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. Allow God to change the way you think. Well, most of you know that we have a guest here today, and I am going to invite her up now, and we're going to come up and sit on the stage. Theresa, why don't you join us? Don't worry, it won't screech when you walk in front. And lots of you know Theresa. And for those of you who this is new, I occasionally will invite somebody to come and be part of the message and try to do it a little bit informally. And Theresa is very used to being in front of people and speaking, but you can still give her a nice warm welcome by smiling at her. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah. No, it's on, I think.
Hello, hello. Hi, Scott. Hello, hello, testing.
Lights on,
Testing.
Scott.
Testing. Now, better?
There
Yeah,
we go. All right.
Thank you.
And Theresa and Steve, her husband, have worshiped with us somewhat regularly over the last year, and so lots of you will know Theresa. But you may not know Theresa by her day job, and why don't you tell everybody what it is that you do, and maybe introduce your family who's with you today.
Okay, well, I'll introduce my family first. So Steve and Alyssa, who is 17, and Tara's 14. You girls can wave. They love that attention. So I've been, for the last several years, I've been a mindset coach. So it is all about the way that you think, the way that you approach life. And I'm a speaker and facilitator. But as Pastor Dale would say, I'm comfortable in front of crowds. But this up here in a church is very new to me.
Yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah, it is.
It always is for people. And many of you may, if you listen to 97.9 FM in the mornings, Theresa's on KFNW, the local religious Christian music station as well, so you might hear her there. But, okay, we'll get right into it. What I wanted to have you come and talk to us about are these 7 mindset thingies, and for lack of a better term. And what we wanted to hear is just a little bit of what it is that you share with people that might kind of relate to what it is that we're talking about in regards to preparing for times of feeling abandoned or forgotten, or going through difficult times.
So what I've learned over the last several years, it's been a long journey, and it is all about the way that you approach life. It's your perspective, because you've been to, say you go to a breakfast buffet, and you come out at the end of that buffet thinking that was the best meal ever, the service was great, the conversation was awesome, you had a wonderful experience, it was a lot of fun. The next person that you talk to comes out of that meal saying, the service was lousy, the sausage was cold, my family was just being difficult. They had a horrible experience, and it was really a matter of their perspective and how they chose to look at it. And what they chose to look for is also a part of it. So I'm certified in the 7 mindsets, and this was something that came up 2012. It was crazy. I was calling myself a mindset coach, and then I got introduced to the 7 mindsets, which were based on research, And interestingly enough, it's 7 mindsets that lead to happiness and success. So when we talk about happiness versus joy, we've got that whole thing. But you look at what the world looks at, and the world, of course, says, okay, I don't get joy, I get happiness. And I think that's kind of why they termed it that too, because it is a matter of, it's fulfillment, it's making choices that have, knowing that your choices have consequences and taking responsibility for those choices. So the 7 mindsets, very briefly, it's all research. I didn't do the research, I didn't write the book. I just have the benefit of being able to share those with others. First and foremost is everything is possible. So knowing that everything is possible, that whatever you're struggling with now, you can get beyond that, and there is hope and there is healing. The dreams that you have, the goals that you have, whatever you're faced with right now, that doesn't have to be what tomorrow is. And it's having that positive expectation about that and allowing yourself to dream bigger. And, when people say I'm a coach, they'll say, well, you must have, a business plan solidly in place. Well, I don't, because that's God's job for me. I just take steps every day, and I let Him take control of my marketing and my business plan because it works so much better. Mindset number 2 is passion first. So figuring out what you're passionate about, how do you get up out of bed every day, do what you do over and over again? How can you be a blessing to others? How can you live your life in a way that takes your talents and your gifts and you show them to the world so that you have something to offer? Mindset number 3 is we are connected, and that's about relationships. So all the things that we find here, the building of relationships with people, helping others first, not being selfish, focusing more on others than yourself, focusing on giving, not receiving. Mindset number 4 is probably the most difficult, and probably the most relevant to discussion today, I think, too, because it's 100% accountable. Saying that we have to be 100% accountable for our decisions, our choices, our joy, our happiness, our success, all the things that we do, all the things that we say, the words that we speak, the thoughts that we think. Romans 12 that we just read, it talks about offering your body as a living sacrifice. Well, we can't do that if we're not taking care of our body. And we all know we're supposed to exercise, right? But how long did it take for me to figure out that, I actually have to do that regularly in order to feel better?
Yeah.
So things like that, where it's taking control of the things that we have control over. 5 is attitude of gratitude.
Let me just say that for those brothers and sisters who are in recovery, the whole accountability piece is one that they get because that's built into the 12 steps and something that we know if we're going to maintain recovery or grow in recovery, that's absolutely necessary. So
necessary and not always easy.
Not always easy.
And it's a daily choice. I think that's the thing. With all the stuff that I do, it's daily choices, and it's a focus and an intention every single day. So it's not like you listen to something once, you learn something once, and it makes sense at the time. It's every single day. Just like your prayer life, hopefully it's every single day. Reading the Bible, hopefully it's every single day. It might not seem fun and exciting, but that's where the discipline pays off with accountability. 5 is attitude of gratitude. Paul tells us to be thankful for everything, all circumstances, all the time. And most of us, that's far out there. It would be hard to do that. But that's really the message that we're supposed to follow, is being grateful for every situation all the time. And how can you find that silver lining? Mindset number 6 is live to give. So giving the world your best version of yourself, giving back in time, talent, and treasure, and being that blessing to others. And mindset 7 is the time is now. So enjoying the present, but also taking action and knowing that every step you make is a chance to create momentum in your life. So it's stepping forward little by little. Martin Luther King Jr. has that great quote about, you don't have to see the whole staircase, you just have to know what that next step is. And I think it provides such hope for people because it's simply that next step. And you don't have to look ahead 365 days, just deal with today.
So what are some practical things? I mean, if we could take home a few practical things that we could start working on, this week that would be helpful for us in our own journey to particularly prepare for forgottenness.
Well, know that certainly your trust needs to be in God and not in man, because you will get disappointed. You will experience setbacks with people all the time. So I think if you can really focus on that, Dale mentioned that I'm on Life 97.9 now, and that's been a really cool blessing. The music on there, now that I'm on every day and I listen even more than I did before, and I'm hearing all those songs, I'm waking up to the music, and I'm waking up to it in my head. And the words and the lyrics are in my head, and it's so cool and it's so reassuring that if you can fill your mind every day with things like that. So thinking music, what do you listen to? There are audios, and it's free. There's stuff on the internet, on YouTube. There's great stuff out there. Beth Moore, Joyce Meyer, Les Brown is a neat guy who's very biblically based, but he's out doing a lot of business stuff. Joel Osteen, not everybody is a fan, but Joel's got some good stuff for your mind out there too. There's a lot of great information out there that will help your brain. And if you listen to that, start your day with that while you're getting ready, while you're making breakfast, while you're drinking that cup of coffee, because it's going to fill your mind with good things. Another thing, I see a lot of people with the bands on their arms. Those are visual reminders of what's important and what you can keep as priorities. So do things like that. Something in your pocket, something on your wrist, something, a ring in a different place will say, oh, that's weird. Ladies, you'll get this. Like, I don't have a ring on this finger today. There's something up, right? You'll notice that. And maybe that's your reminder that you need to keep focused on something, to keep that intention going. I use little index cards, pack of brightly colored index cards placed in my car, in my bathroom mirror, around the house, by my laptop, messages that I need to know. One of mine by my computer says, I speak what I seek. Because if I talk about things, all the stuff that's going wrong and all the things that I'm whining about that's not perfect, the things I'm going to complain about, then that's where my mind goes, or it's where my thought goes. I'm not grateful anymore if I do that. So I need to focus on the good.
Okay, that's excellent. Now, tell me, or tell us if you have seen evidence that these mindsets and these suggestions and ideas that you actually work in people's lives.
How long do we have? No.
Yeah, as long as you want, I guess.
Yeah, really. Everybody else is saying no to end soon. There's so many amazing stories, real life things that have happened where people can shift their mindset about, I had somebody who we had a small training event. She left that saying, this is really helpful. I need to look at this weekend differently. She was going to a family event, in-laws, that whole thing. There were a lot of family dynamics. And she shifted her own expectations of what was going to happen. She focused on what she could control with the situation, her conversations. And she said that next week, it was a totally different experience. She actually had a fun time with her relatives. So that was really cool to hear that. There was a lady when we were in a week-long training, and she came up to me on like day 4 with just tears in her eyes. She was actually coming to learn the 7 mindsets to teach them to kids, and she had no idea that she would be profoundly affected. She had tears in her eyes, and she said, I'm 50 years old, and I am leaving here in this room 41 years of resentment. I have 41 years of resentment I have let go of. It feels like 41 pounds I'm leaving here, and I just need to tell you that it had such a huge impact on me. And she didn't even expect that it would change, anything would change her.
Yeah.
And personally, do you ever feel forgotten? Of course, we have some family challenges occasionally, and there's the family dynamics, friend dynamics, and then we'll occasionally get forgotten in the midst of things that we used to be included with. And you look at that and say, okay, I could get really upset about that. I could feel really down about that. Or I could say, you know what, I need to just focus on what I can control, put my trust in God. And also, some of those situations too, my brother is an interesting character, and their whole group of friends, we go through these cycles where you kind of feel like you're included and in part of this family, in this group, and then you feel like you're completely excluded. And we've also come to realize that there's certain, I don't know, it's kind of a party crowd, and we just need to kind of be beyond that at this point in our lives. So that also gives us that assurance that it's okay in some instances to be forgotten and know that this is not where we need to be right now. We can still send love. We can still, pray for them. that's just not where we need to be. And there's no judgment. It's just, I don't want to be in that situation.
Yeah, one of the most important things that we can do as individuals is begin to frame our own world. And we learn that in recovery, especially that I can't really determine how somebody else is going to react. I can't worry about how others are going to react. I need to take care of my own self and my own reality, and let the chips fall where they may, and just accept that this is where I am. And so it's kind of a same principle that last week, for those of you who were here, we talked about in this journey towards joy of identifying our reality. It's one of our first steps. It's a first step in recovery as well. I'm going to identify my reality. Here's what I can control, manage. Here's what I can't control or manage. Does that make sense to you? And
Totally, because there's only so much that's within our control. So one of the things that I like to tell myself regularly is I will do my part and I will let God do his. But we get so hung up on trying to control outcomes, and that's what we spend a lot of time and energy focusing on, and that does us no good. And the Bible tells us that worrying cannot add an hour to our lives, so why even go there? We just need to focus on what we can control and take control of that.
Okay. Thank you. Why don't you thank Theresa for sharing a little bit with us? I think that stuff is so helpful and true, because ministering with you and having been through my own journey myself, I know that there are lots of times where we begin to feel turned in on ourselves, where we begin to feel sorry for ourselves, and where we talk ourselves into the feeling that we are forgotten and that we're abandoned. And one of the things that we continue to try to lift up to you and to teach here at the Lighthouse is that you are responsible for yourself, not responsible for what other people do or say or what they can do. And the reality is that we, as followers of Jesus who come together in this place, we need to continue to remember that God has made us in his image, that he has created us to be unique and special. And if you are feeling forgotten today, I want to just challenge you before we close our worship service, that there are some things that you can begin to frame your world around on this day. The first being this reality, identify reality. What is your situation today? And is there a way that you can look at your situation and give control over to God and not just try to possess it all yourself? Don't listen to the lies that are spoken to you. One of the most, I deal with this with people every week, and I deal with this myself every week. One of the first lies that comes in our life when we are struggling or when we are feeling forgotten is that I am forgotten, so I'm going to isolate. I'm going to turn the rest of the world out, and I'm just going to be by myself. Thank you very much. Who here has struggled with isolation? Lots of you. Isolation is our enemy. Saw something on Facebook just recently that says the worst part about isolation is we only get bad advice when we're there. We hear messages like, I'm nobody, or that I am not lovable. And the reality is that you are somebody. You are a masterpiece created in God's image. You are God's child. That you are valuable, so valuable to him that he died on the cross for you to redeem you. We are a people of immense value. Say, I am valuable. I am a masterpiece. And you are lovable. And you are lovable. And so if you are at that place where you are feeling forgotten today, I want to encourage you to reach out to somebody, maybe somebody here, to get some help and to remember the power of prayer. After the worship service, if there's anybody who wants to just spend a minute in prayer, I would be happy to pray with you before you go on your way. You can come down front. And those who want to visit with me, I'll just ask you to wait a few minutes for those who might want to pray this morning. Scott is going to lead us in communion this morning. Thank you again, Theresa, for sharing with us today. We're not done yet.
In the night in which he was betrayed, our Lord Jesus took some bread and gave thanks, broke it, and gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take and eat, this is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." Again after supper, he took the cup, gave thanks, and gave it for all to drink, saying, "This cup is a new covenant of my blood, shed for you and for all people, for the forgiveness of sin. Do this in remembrance of me." Please join me in the Lord's Prayer.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Well, we believe that Jesus is present with us and that all who believe in him are welcome to communion. You will just follow the usher's direction. You'll receive an empty cup, and then you receive the bread, and then the grape juice, which is what we use here at Lighthouse, will be poured into your cup, and you can place the cup in the basket on your way back.
Amen.
Body, blood, of Jesus Christ, straight to you, in God's grace.